Well, good morning, church. We are still looking at 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 down to the end of the chapter, which is 21. And we're looking at the love of God for us and then our love for God that comes out of that. So there's a love for God that does something to us. We receive it. And then our love for God allows us, as we've learned yesterday, to be that conduit of his love for others. Let me just read again 7 down to 12. And today we'll tackle 8 and 9. 9 and 10. It says this: Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. In this the love of God was manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world, so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he has loved us and sent his Son to be a propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. So yesterday when we looked at 7 and 8, we saw that whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. That the new birth is the ultimate cause. God has caused the new birth. And when we have the new birth and we know God in this intimate, present relationship with him, then we become loving people. That God has loved us, and so we start to love other people. But some would say the atheist loves his wife. He loves his children. He's good to people. And that is true. They can do that. But that's not the kind of love that John is talking about here, or that God is talking about. John doesn't leave it undefined. He says God is love. And then he says this: in this, the love of God was manifest among us. This is how God displayed his love. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. God sent his Son into the world so that sinners, dead, rebellious sinners, could come to life. This, he's talking about the new birth. He sent his Son into the world so that we might come back to life from a place of being spiritually dead. Again, he's referring back to the new birth. And he says, anyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. They know God through knowing his Son, who was the display of love, so that he would come into the world as this display of love, causing the new birth so that we would know God and then begin to love again. So when the atheist has love for his children, love for his wife, a philanthropist kind of love into the world, it is not the kind of love that he's talking about here, because the kind of love he's talking about is a love that is anticipated and empowered by the Son who was sent into the world. And the unbeliever does not hold to that. And so he cannot be loving the way God is talking about here. And so then he further defines it. He goes, that was the display. God has sent his Son into the world so that we might live, we might have this new birth. What does it look like? In this is love. Now he's going to define it. So he displayed it, now he's defining it. In this is love. Not that we have loved God. So immediately that's cut out of the question. We don't do something for God first before the new birth. We don't love God. We don't have a capacity to do something for God that he would then do something for us. We don't love God, but he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. So God looks down on this rebellious mankind, this sinful mankind, and he decides he's going to love them. And the way that he loves them is he sends his precious son, his most precious relationship of this person. He sends him into the world to make them alive, but he makes them alive by going to his death. Propitiation is being appeased, anger being appeased, the full vent of the fury of anger being released, but released on the Son instead of on the sinner. And when it's released on the Son, the full vent is gone, then God is no longer angry, no longer displeased with those that the Son has died for. And so this is the kind of love that is displayed in those that are born again. Those that are born again go to those who are not reconciled back to God, and they display the glory of his Son, and they show off the glory of Jesus to people to make them alive, to cause this new birth. And the sins that are being committed against them while they do this, they charge not to the people that are doing the sins, but they charge it to Christ. They bring it to Jesus. And so when we are able to love in such a way of knowing that people need to see Jesus to be made alive, when we love people in such a way that no matter what they're doing to us, we're charging that sin to the account of Christ instead of to them, then we are loving like God. And so you see, the unbeliever can't do this because he doesn't have Jesus in focus. He doesn't have Jesus in focus as the Son who came down to make people alive, and they don't have Jesus in focus as the one who died under the wrath of God for sins. And if you don't, then you can't love the way God is saying to love. But those who do love this way have been made alive, have been born again. They know God, and so they're able then to love other people. Church, evaluate the way that you love. Do you love in such a way that your display of love is to get people to see the Son of God? Do you love in such a way that when people sin against you, you take that sin and charge it to Christ instead of holding the grudge against them? If you love that way, you have been born again and know God. And now make it your aim to share the love of God in the Son to everyone you come in contact with, everyone you have influence over. Church will continue to talk about this, but this is an amazing gift that God has given. We didn't love him. He loved us and sent his Son into the world so that we might live. And we come to life because of the propitiation, because of the wrath that the Son of God absorbed in our place. Love you, church. Focus on this today and find fellowship with God. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.